All right, good morning and rather good afternoon to some, good evening to others, and good morning to everybody else. We are coming live in five, four, three, two, one. Good morning, everybody. Well, so an afternoon. I keep saying good morning because I'm used to morning break time with the bishop. But good afternoon. This is another episode of Kingdom Wealth Building Strategies. And when I say that I am excited of the guest that we have on today. Me and my co host, Jason Matthews. I'm telling you right now, I want you all to take a moment to like, tag, and share. Make sure that you are, if you're on Facebook or if you on YouTube, that you are commenting and you are sharing. Text somebody, call somebody, inbox somebody, and tell them, listen, you want to be on for this episode. Okay, I guess I just lost my backdrop. You want to be on for this episode, and I'm excited because of what we have to offer and what we're going to be talking about on today. Is going to be a little bit of a shift. Last week we dealt with a lot of we dealt with building wealth through real estate. Jason brought us back on and kind of reestablished the understanding of the first time home buying or leveraging the house that you have to continue to expand your real estate portfolio. He spoke to us about market projections. He spoke to us about leveraging the low interest rate with the competitiveness rather because of the low interest rate and the high buyers request versus the low inventory, just to kind of get us resettled. Now we're going to shift a little bit and we're going to take the conversation a little bit deeper in regards to building wealth, but also building wealth through cultural experience. So at this time, without further ado, I want to bring on and let's greet him for a moment, our co-host, Mr. Jason St. Matthew. Let me get you going. Hold on. Hold on. Help is on the way. All right. Let's get that over. Let's get your mic on. Like at this point, Jason, we just kind of need a whole production crew. Because now we have taken this thing to levels that I don't think did you expect, Jason? Welcome to the broadcast. Let me ask you this real quick before we go crazy. Did you expect this to turn into this when we first started talking and first started dealing?
Honestly, Bishop, I think with anything in life, consistency is key. And with consistency, the sky is the limit. So I never try to put a cap on anything. I just like to go with the flow, and if it builds out, it builds out. So no, I didn't expect it. From the way we started to our disagreement over that controversial topic till
Wait,
here.
okay, hold on. Because I get so many texts and inbox because we lightly refer to it and then we back out. What was the controversy? Because I don't even remember it being a controversy. And that's how Sesame
It
Street
was about
Jason is.
Kanye getting to that billionaire status, and I threw it up in a post. And then you were just like, "Listen, man, props to him, but there's certain ways or methods by which you go about achieving certain things in life." Then we went back and forth about different perspectives, but it was just appreciative that we were able to respect each other's perspective and still be able to can have a continued bond moving forward. And I think because of that stance, this was able to flourish the way it was.
I love it. So you put up something, I disagreed with your perspective, and you called me out on it, and then I called you and said, let's collaborate.
and and that's about it. That's about it. So let us bring in our guest today. Great guy, has a very unique topic. I wanted to bring him in and see how this is going to really just enlighten something from a completely different perspective of empowerment, that I think is greatly needed, Bishop. So without further ado, we have someone who's international renowned individual when it comes to the artistic realm, Mr. Garon.
That's
Round of
funny.
applause, drum roll.
Hey, hey, how you
You know,
doing?
if I knew
How
how
you
to work
doing?
these things, I could have got a
I don't
clap and
hear the
applause and
bishop.
stuff. You don't hear me? I hear you. You don't hear me clearly?
Jason.
Yeah. So he hears you. You don't
Oh,
hear him.
no.
So you got to have
So I'm
faith.
wondering, is there something I should be doing on my end?
Maybe there's
I
an
hear you.
audio. You gotta like access some audio.
Yeah,
No, I
because
hear
I
you
hear him
fine,
very good. I hear you good. So,
and I see
Jason,
your mic is okay. Video's okay.
so what we'll
Settings.
do, Jason, is let him, you'll be the
This
spokesperson.
is good.
And then, because I can hear him good.
At the very top, it says production preview, and then there's like a red mic. Does that mean anything?
Yeah, I don't know.
On
Because
the
I've
left
never
hand
been on the
side?
other side.
No.
Jason, tell him
Um.
just go ahead and interview him. And
Yeah.
because him being heard is more important than me being heard. I never thought I'll say
Okay.
that, but it is
Okay.
what it is.
Perfect. All right. Cool. So, pretty much, let's just jump into it. So, what I'm gonna do, Garon, is this: I'm gonna pretty much, engage with you, based on whatever questions the bishop has, and then
Okay, until we
we'll
figure it
just
out.
we'll just have that dialogue. Yeah.
Hey, Bishop, how are you? I know you can hear me now.
Can you see me waving? Can he see me waving?
At some point, I will hear your voice. I know it.
So so I guess for today's topic, Garon, just give a quick summary about yourself, your journey, what it is that you really focused on, and I guess the most important thing that you've realized when it comes to empowerment in the community, from your life, so that people can understand what it is that you feel as though is very important that isn't really acknowledged currently.
Okay. Well, to quickly, I guess, summarize my story for your viewers. I'm a New Yorker, born in New York. I come from a family of business owners. My grandfather was a funeral director, and as many members of my family. So I've been exposed to like business and community affairs since a very early age. My grandfather worked with a lot of churches to do many different things, with business or with the churches, and they were actually instrumental in founding a church of the Open Door down on Gold Street back
Okay.
in the day. That's a whole nother story. But I'm an artist since very young, and in my journey, I feel that there's more to be done, in this life than we actually do, and that there's a lot of beauty. So I think art, music are ways of bringing people together to sort of appreciate the moment, and there's power in that. There's power in that. So I went to an art school, FIT. I got out. I did a lot of things. I've had two different careers, kind of in event production of art, curating and things like that, and also working in film. And I've traveled a lot. So some of the things that I really loved doing back in the beginning, when you're young and kind of crazy, I think I published an arts magazine called Art and Propaganda for 4 years, once a year.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it was interesting because what happened was what led me to this path is that I had this passion for people doing art that they were so pure that they wouldn't even leave their house and go out. They're like, I gotta go home and sculpt. I gotta go and paint. And and I would look at the work and I would fall in love, and I was like, I gotta do a show with you. So I ended up doing small shows with people just because I loved what they did. And then at some point I said, hey, I'm traveling around different countries, different places. I started collecting all the artists, and I said, once a year I'm going to put them into a magazine and kind of recap the year. And so that kind of became that. And it was an interesting journey because I didn't have any money to do that. I didn't, I had, minimal skills at typesetting. This is back in the day before the computer. So you had to cut and paste everything. And, but it was a beautiful thing because I learned how to form a community in that moment, and also to work hard to see something accomplished. Not once but twice, but 4 times, and then I stopped it to do other things.
Now, what's really interesting, Iron, you mentioned that you didn't have a lot of money, but you were still able to find a way to become an international presence. How did you garner that ability to still afford traveling to these different places? Was it through building that community first, or were you just able to? How did that come about?
Well, yeah, a bit of good fortune and a bit of work. Specifically, as I said, my grandfather had a funeral home, right, and he on here in Willoughby and Franklin, and it was a huge house, So at one point, I ended up living there, and my dad so that place kind of existed, for quite a long time. So a lot of the time that I didn't need to kind of go out, I was there and I was able to just work, and the money that I made in film, because films were 3 to 6 month projects that you couldn't even spend the money you were making because you were working so hard, like 12 hours a day, and you just go home and you sleep and you go back to work. So I would funnel some of that money into the event, and the other part I would travel with and do things like that. So on the one hand, and then I would do an event and make some money back from that, but primarily it was just a way of balancing, the money that I didn't spend or that I saved by staying at home a little longer and working on other things.
Wow. Okay. So you were able to get creative. You worked for active money and then reinvested that money into your events that I'm sure brought you in additional revenue, which you then saved for your trip so that you can plan, you could plan out exactly when would be a good time to start traveling. And now building out this community, where did the light switch come on as you started to jump into different countries and start to connect with different people, that this was the next step? This was the moment to start building out this community.
That's a good question, Jason. I don't know if there was one moment. I really don't. I just know that family was really important to me.
Okay.
Right. And as I said, when people came into my house, or my grandparents' house, they were treated as family. So on the one hand, in my early travels, I would meet people overseas in Germany or in Italy or something like that, and I would say, hey, if you're in Brooklyn, stop by. And once the guy just stopped by, he didn't even call. He just came by, and he knocked on the door. He walked from the A train on Fulton Street over the way to the G, in the night, 3 minutes. And my grandmother was like, yeah, come on in, have her, stay, And so I think that when I'm out and about in the world, I feel like that's something that so that's the underlying key to what I like to do. I like to see people come together and enjoy their life. So it's always been there. And I found that in an art environment, people also let their guards down somewhat more, and they open up to new experiences and new ideas.
So do you think, building on this preface of the art world, I know that being someone that's dating someone that's an artist, do you feel as though in your household this perspective of being an artist was easily accepted, or were there some challenges that were associated with your approach to your passions?
There's always some challenges, because everyone doesn't understand that. My dad was a social worker, and he had a lot of official jobs, back in the day. And, he would hand me things like, hey, the post office is hiring, and there's nothing wrong with working at the post. I think it's the amazing job, and, it pays well, and we need these jobs. But my heart was to do something else,
Right.
So, and I also, was getting a little, not pressure, but I'm like, hey, so if you want to go to funeral directing school, we got you. And I was like, no,
No
no.
hints.
And it takes a bit of people. People think you're. It's weird, but you get this label, the crazy artist, the crazy person in family,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not crazy. I think that the artist is sometimes the more sane in the end. Because they're using more of their faculties to sort of, pull in information and do stuff with that.
Right.
So, yeah, I got a little bit of that, but at the same time, I was a loving environment. Everybody, they were like, you do what you do. And it worked to some extent. And I didn't ask people for anything, which I think is important. Every so often, yeah, you ask for something, but, but it was fun. It's something you it's a challenge you give yourself, as you know.
Jason, see if you can ask him, because I'm curious. We're
Yeah, the
talking
bishop.
about
That's the question.
creativity. We're talking about art, artistic expression. Let's merge the two worlds together with wealth building. And I think me and you spoke about this earlier, Jason. Whereas I see the need of cultural influence that does have an effect on what we consider wealth and what we consider in the path of wealth building. If he can't hear me, you communicate. Let's take the conversation there. What does the culture have to do with wealth, and why is it necessary for us to have African American, Black, Latino, people of color be a part of cultural influence and its role in wealth building?
So now, great question, Bishop. So what the bishop is asking Garon is, we want to take it a step further based on this grounding in your observation of the culture, and with your unique perspective, what does the culture need to do to gear towards or associate more with wealth building? And just based from your understanding as an artist, as someone that has established a community internationally, especially with individuals in the Black, Brown, Latino community, what are the most immediate steps that you think are needed for us to take that shift successfully?
Yeah, Bishop, that's a great question. And it's multifaceted, I suppose. There's many things. I would say the more difficult first response would be the changing of, which more difficult because it's harder to do it in mass, but a changing of the mindset of that the society is going to help you. And you have to work within that society, because that's a distraction and it's not true. And it's also a crutch.
Wow.
Right? So the first is really expect nothing from no one and from society in particular, right? When you receive things, then you give blessings. You say, this is amazing, and you give thanks and you give more. But the first is, because our mindset might be, okay, you might have someone who hasn't changed their mindset and they want to build wealth, and they say, okay, I'm going to build wealth, so I'm going to go and get a loan, and I have an idea, and I'm going to do that. And then they go to get a loan, and they run into the system that tells them, no, this is not a good idea. What do you mean? How do you know it's not a good? It's not a good idea for you. It's a good idea for the brother. So you're not going to give the brother funds. Okay, fine, But he now feels it's not a good idea, or that he can't get funds from anyone. And he's wasted valuable time filling out papers and doing all this stuff. Okay, so that's what I mean. Is the first thing is
wait,
how we can
hold on, Gary. He wants to highlight that real quick. Let him amplify that. Listen, Bishop, I got you. I got you with the energy.
Jason, hold
Trust me, there's lots of energy going on for that right now, girl. All right. Go ahead, Bishop. Go ahead.
This whole church just went up. But he said,
I wish I could
something.
hear him. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. He says something so profound
What
to
can I
that
do?
young man, particularly to the young man who is starting out, or young woman who's starting out thinking that society wants him or her to win. And so you have these expectations that society is going to help me. And when he said, have no expectations from society, that hit me on so many levels, Jason, because number one, if we're talking about using the culture or using culture to assist in wealth building, and if we're talking about a community who has been oppressed, suppressed, and kept out of the the fair market, if you would, to keep from building wealth, why would that society that built a system against certain individuals building wealth help you to build wealth? So to me, it sounds as though that individual has to understand, I have to be a trendsetter. You mentioned it, Jason. I have to be creative, not being pessimistic, but not expecting the wrong thing from the wrong society. I have
Absolutely.
to make it, right? And then I shut up on this, from me making it, I may not even be able, because I heard him talking about, like, his dad was giving him little hints. There's nothing wrong with working at the post office. Would you like
Right.
to go to directing school, get in the family business? Just giving little hints of saying, hey, I want to make sure you're going to be okay, because again, I'm looking at you from this societal perspective, not the
Right.
society of our community, but the society and the system that we live in. I want to make sure you're going to be able to eat. I want to make sure that you're going to be successful. So go ahead and take this job. Go ahead and kind of don't worry about those dreams right now, because those dreams are not going to pay no bills.
That's a
Essentially, is what I
powerful
was
point.
hearing.
That's a powerful point. So, Garon, what the bishop pretty much just said.
Can I just say something real quick?
Yes.
Bishop, I can hear you.
Listen, the Lord.
I clicked on my picture and it got bigger and then it got smaller. Now I hear you fine. I heard all of that.
Oh man! All right, we're live.
Wow!
Let's
Praise
go.
the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
I'm loving this. I'm loving today. Listen, we improv into the success story. That's it.
Yes.
That's it.
Woo! Jason, that was good. We improv into the success story. I love it.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean that's but how we get there is key. How we get there. But I think we can get there, and I think if we focus on getting there, so I think that would be the first thing, Bishop. Jason.
But Gordon, what I'm really trying to land is that when you are standing against a society who's somewhat built against you,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have parents. I'm a father now. I have three beautiful kids, actually four. That's that I've adopted a son, and it's just become a part of the family.
Congratulations. That's
So
beautiful.
thank you. Oh yeah,
Yes. God
So
bless.
within that, I feel that pressure. I'm not as rambunctious as I was in my 20s, who, looks at the world as this utopian place of opportunity and everybody wants you to make it. You have one side of the system that is literally stacked against you. Then you
Mm-hmm.
have another side, and this is your family, your friends who are stuck in oppression and suppression and want
Mm-hmm.
you to make it as much as
Mm-hmm.
possible. So they may not be able to believe in the whimsical aspects of your dreams. That's when you got to know within your heart, I know I'm going to get there with
Mm-hmm.
or without your help. you know, and when I
Yep.
get there, I'm going to go back and bring you. But I feel like our culture has been influenced by another culture. So you got two sets of cultures that saying you can't make it, you can't do it. How do you navigate through that? And you said expect nothing from society. Don't expect anybody to help you. That sounds pessimistic. Show me the positivity in that.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of positivity in that, in the sense for me that, it's, 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 yeah, it would be pessimistic if you ended it, ended the story with that and said, hey, nothing out there. But in the sense that in the sense that it's not. I'm from the camp that believes that life is a beautiful game that we play, and we are assigned roles or we are taken roles by our own initiative, but we have to play a role. And when you play the role to its fullest, you're not fearing the game, you're enjoying the game. Even
Yes.
even the even the dangerous parts, like I'm gonna not am I gonna get. So what I'm saying is that you go back to that brother who now has this idea. And when I say change the mindset, don't expect anything, it's the same thing you would say that, he goes in and he's expecting some sort of fairness, to get this money, and maybe he doesn't find it, or maybe it's a like a casino. Maybe out of 10 he'll find one. So, but the other if he goes back in with the mindset, I don't expect anything. I'm just going, and I'm just going, and I'm just going. It's not personal. I understand where they're coming from, but maybe it's going to happen, and maybe it's not. And it's a game. And what do I need to say to get what I need to get done today? Fine. You say what you need to say, and you bring them the pieces, and you walk out. Okay, it's just another no. Let's continue to go. So his mindset is not expecting anything from that, so he's not going to take anything negative from that. He knows that in this game he's going to win. And for example, a friend of mine, who you might know, he's Danny Simmons. He's an artist curator. He was saying how, like, when he had to sell, I think he was writing this on Facebook, that he had to sell his house in Brooklyn in order to get it appraised. His friend said, you gotta put a white person in that house. Or actually, he said the broker said, don't be here. And they removed all the blackness from the house. And he got a higher appraisal. So now you can be upset about that, but that's part of this really silly game. So I'm not going to get upset about that,
See,
in my world.
pause for a second, Jason, and I know you picked this up. He said life is a beautiful game, and you have two choices: have a role assigned to you, or have the role that you want. And I think it's about picking the role that you want and doing what it takes to win the game. And if you don't have any false expectations, then you don't have any disappointments, and you push through. You do what
Yes.
it takes to make it happen. Funny thing is, I shut up. We have a food pantry now. Jason, I'm always about the community. This is about the
Yes.
community, and I'm trying to normalize conversations like this, because if I was throwing dirt, and I think he said something about open door, and I wonder if that's Open Door Church of God in Christ, when he talked about building, but that's another story. But if we were being derogative, and we were just being messy, we'll have 2,000 views. I looked
Right.
at a post that said, the life of the rich and famous gets millions of views, but the lessons of the rich and famous gets maybe one or two. But
Yeah.
my heart is, as an influencer, to create a culture that says these conversations matter, and to normalize
Mm-hmm.
these types of conversations. Listening to stories of people who have
Beautiful.
made it, that have gone through it, that have overcome, and come back and say, hey, this is how I made it over. And this is how you can take lessons from this and apply it to your life, and make it through. But I was saying that we've had a food pantry for years, and we get what we can get from the food banks, and we come back and we bring it into our communities. And when I would go into the warehouse, we started out very, very small staff. So I was the the food pantry picker upper and the food pantry distributor, and then get up and preach. But thank God we have a team now. When I will go, and I'm the bishop, I will see, like, packages of good stuff. Like, when I mean good stuff, I'm like good stuff that you want to buy from Costco's, or all that stuff. And I was like, can I get that? No, 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 that's reserved. But I'm like, well, who is it reserved for? I would never be able to get my hands on that good stuff. I couldn't
And
fight about it.
that ties into food deserts, Bishop.
Listen, okay?
Yep.
Right?
We
So
ain't gonna go there though. Listen, that's a
well,
whole different
let's come
topic.
back. Let's come back.
Garo, we might have to have a round 2 with this one, but
You understand
let's
me?
keep going, Bishop.
Keep it moving. But I would say, can I get that? No, that's reserved. Can I get? It was always reserved. I'm like, well, what do I need to do to get to the
Exactly.
reserve?
What do you have to do?
Well, guess what? Guess what? About last year or so, 2 years, 3 years ago, this precious heart comes to our ministry. I think she's an angel. I don't even remember where she was when she said, "Oh, I remember you from." I'm like, I don't remember you from where you were. When she had the heart to work, and she kind of got plugged in. She loves working in the community, so I made her the director of the food pantry and outreach. Let me tell you, when she comes in, when I say the stuff that she comes in with, Jason, Garon, when
Yeah.
I say the stuff that she
Mm.
comes in with,
Mm. Mm.
I couldn't get it for years,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
she's in charge. Coincidentally, she's a middle-aged, beautiful white lady, you know, and
Okay.
she comes in with truckloads of stuff. And so we had
Okay.
somebody say, "Oh, Bishop, can I?" No, you cannot take over the food pantry at all. Matter of fact, you can't even work in the food pantry. I want her place in the front, the back, and the middle because she gets us good stuff. Now, I'm not going to go down there and holler and scream. No. They don't even see my face no more, Jason.
No, they
Even
don't.
know if I exist.
Yeah.
They don't know.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
I send her. What I'm saying is that, hey, play the game. And she's such a sainted heart. She's such a precious heart. And we feed close to 500 to 1,000 people every single
Amazing.
week. Not only do we feed them, but we're able to give them supplies and tissue. There's something like all of this stuff was here. Yeah, it's about the game. It's about the pieces. Now I can choose to cry or I can choose to win. Go ahead, back to you. I just wanted to put that little story and just a little
Beautiful.
texture to what you're saying.
And now just to really piggyback off of this awakening that needs to happen amongst individuals like ourselves. With your niche skill set, Garon, how do you think, art and music can specifically help with that cause of awakening the community, helping people become more aware, and just shifting the culture as it currently stands from depending on certain societal standpoints, which we know with all these robots and technology and things being automated, a lot of these occupations, we're saying, are going to be disappearing. And it's going to be something that's going to make life just a little bit harder for everyone that's depending on a past societal standard of what is considered safety financially. So I would just love to know, how do people adapt and adjust, and how does art and music help awaken and shift the culture into what needs to happen?
Well, another, very, very good point to bring up and to ask about. Very quickly, one can point a connection before I get into the other part of the fact that art and music, when you engage with them, it's creativity, and it brings a little bit of creativity to you just to see it, just to interact with it. Your creativity can be engaged, and immediately you can bring that into the financial realm, because you make money in the financial realm if you can be creative. Absolutely. You have to be creative, and that's very important. So if that opens up that faculty, then that's one reason to be engaged with art and music. Just so the people who are a little bit more cerebral in that end. The more, say, esoterical idea behind art and music,
Use your big
is
words, sir. Use your big words.
I'm pulling them out. I pay good money for these words.
Just
Oh
slap them
man.
on the table. Slap them
I'm gonna use all of them.
effortlessly too. Effortlessly.
And anyway, as I'm sure the bishop will understand and agree, music, art, and music have been used since antiquity to move people, to raise vibration of masses of people. And whether we're talking the cave paintings from 50,000 and 100,000 years ago in France and around the world that they've done, to battle cries from the Assyrians or whomever, singing war songs to rile up your army to conquer, or soothing melodies. So we have a connection as humans to art and music. It has been given to us from the universe to move us, to vibrate with us, and to put us back in line. So if we're out of tune, music can help, and art can help bring us into tune and just raise our vibration. So that's the first thing I think we should remember, that it's very powerful. And when at the same time, if you are receiving art and music that is atonal or not, that's vibrating on a kind of really manic frequency, it also can harm you as well. So there's a lot of images that you might be hit with throughout the day, from your computer, sounds outside. Believe it or not, I think you guys will remember last summer there were a series of, I think we spoke about this on the phone, of fireworks going off all night. Drove people crazy, and I know it affected people's mentality. And also there were a lot of sirens, and during COVID there were a lot of sirens and things. So these things, it's actually you cannot say it's not a music, because the fireworks can be a kind of percussive thing. It boom 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 boom. It's a percussion, and the sirens are just very high pitched sounds. And so once we know how to build a filter, we start to think intentionally about the opening up ourselves to art and music that can raise our vibration. And we have a lot of examples of that. We can go back to the 40s, 50s, 60s. We can go to Marianne Williamson. We can go to Mahalia Jackson. When she sings what she's bringing. We can move forward to James Brown, coming out in the 70s with, hey, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud, with that driving hard beat behind it, was no nonsense. That liberated the minds of so many young and older black Americans to move on and to take life a little bit in control. Because prior to that, they were focused on, they have to look and be more white in order to be proud, and not in general, but it seemed like that. And from that moment on, so these things are they're out there. So I would just say, first, recognize how powerful it is, and start to curate your intake of what you see. And you can ask, you can visit art shows. You can scroll through playlists to hear soothing music that inspires you. Make a playlist of things that inspire you and use that in the morning. Find art you like, and if you can't buy it, print it out and put it up on your wall, from the FedEx or whatever you go to do it. And that kind of thing, it can bring your mentality up, and like I said, it helps to change your mindset a little bit about how to navigate through the world.
Now, Garon, you've touched. Sorry, Bishop. I want to make sure I don't lose track of this, because
go in.
You've touched on very powerful, specific time frames in life, and the music associated with those time frames, and how that has helped build and boost confidence of a people to feel more proud of themselves and see enlightenment in who they are instead of a comparison culture. Now, to take it to present day, from your perspective, because the bishop loves to put me on blast when it comes to my perspective from a real estate view of present day. But we ain't, you know what I mean? So you're going to have to take a little bit of a shot. So present day, Garon, what is your understanding or assessment of the overall census of the music and art and how it's affecting people present day?
Whoa, la, 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 la.
That's a hot seat question. Just be yourself and just because it's important to have people feel as though they're not alone.
Okay. My overall, yeah. You said
the 70s and 80s hit different, so that means there's something different about the other time periods, and I just want to
identify the different.
Yeah, I just want to identify it. I'm making them sweat.
Well, I mean, in the the most immediate response, if about what's different, is the fact that for whatever reasons of culture you can find, I'm a child of the 80s. I mean, I grew up in the 70s, but like I came to my maturity in the 80s. By the time I was already becoming a teenager, a young teen, 20 years old, a lot of the music that I listened to was based on the 60s and 70s and 80s. It was already recurring, whereas that hadn't happened really before. I mean, not exactly to that extent. And it got to the point where actually people just played the same things. And by the time we got to the 90s, you just had a regurgitation of James Brown, of the Ohio Players, of the Spinners, of whomever, and that's great, which is important. I would have to say, I don't know where to look at the moment to something that is as powerfully new. When I heard Prince the first time, I was like, what is he doing? What is this? But I loved it, but I was like, this is like insane. I don't know how to feel about this. And when I heard, and that was in 78, 79, and I heard Public Enemy the first time, my mind was blown because it was a mix of things that it made me stop and think. So what I'm looking for today is what makes me stop and think. There were, that experience, if I can find, I'm just saying I haven't really found it. And if I do find it.
So you're saying you don't really, Drake fan, huh? You really
I don't know too many Drake songs.
I don't know too many Drake. Honestly, so you're not what's another Plies or Ace Hood, any of those names ring a bell?
No.
Oh man, bless your soul. You are a fortunate man.
I think I've seen your faces.
He said
you're a fortunate man.
Let me ask you a quick
question. I think I've seen their faces. There's some interesting things going on with young folks in blues, I think. But here's the thing. There are what I just said about the music that can make you sort of stop in your tracks. It exists. I just haven't run into it, but every so often I will hear something, and it exists out there, and it's our job to find it. And right now we're in so many bubbles. That's why to say, hey, I've got a macro vision is really weird, because we're in a position where we have the most access to the most different types of music than ever before in the history of this planet. But at the same time, we really can't do it. We can't do it. We're in these bubbles, and we can barely access what's in these bubbles.
I want to ask you a question, and I think this kind of might tie into where Jason was going. Now understanding the science and thereby the power that the artistic expression, whether it be through poetry, whether it be through literature, whether it be through drama, whether it be through theater, whether it be through music, because you kind of covered that in when I was reading your bio, your span of experience, you're a filmmaker, art curator. I never get that pronunciation right, but I know what I'm saying.
Said it right.
Art shows, music. Do you see a how do I say this in the nicest way? Do you see that there could be negative impact on music or arts expressors to limit the positive impact that music and art and culture, if you would, will have on said communities? In other words, what I'm
Present
asking
day.
is, is it, do you think that there are a lot of our brothers and sisters who are
Mm-hmm.
given an option, saying this and we'll make you rich, saying that and we won't fund your record, and we won't publish your work? Do you think, knowing the power of music, if you're talking about the 70s and 60s, you're talking about James Brown, you're talking about Mahalia Jackson, you're talking about people who moved the world through their art,
Mm-hmm.
did somebody catch on to that and say, hey, we have to limit that because there's too much power being expressed through this art and it is changing too good? Or do you think that it's just artists not wanting to address certain topics? Is it the
I mean,
artist,
we all
or
know
is
that's a
it
no-brainer. That's a no-brainer question, but I feel like Garo's trying to skip to my loo around it. He
No,
didn't
no,
know it's
no,
gonna be a
no.
hot seat like this.
I feel it was definitely limited by individuals, who recognize the power of and it's still being done. It's being done, and it'll be done till the last one of them dies out.
okay? So this is my question, and this goes back to where you mess me up with the whole society expectation, right? Because society for me is another word of culture, right? So that the culture, I can't expect something from a culture different than what the culture was brought together for, the principles and the
Mm.
values that establish that society, right? So I can't
Mm-hmm.
expect a culture whose entire platform is be rich at the cost of others to come back and say, let me help you be rich. I can't expect that. So what do you say to the artist that is coming up that could be lured by the wealth of record companies that says, hey, we will get you out of poverty and you can bring your mommy and maybe your dad and your brothers and sisters, but you can't bring your community? And what I mean by you can't bring your community,
Wow.
you can't sing
Mm-hmm.
this, you can't
Mm-hmm.
show that, your art cannot communicate that.
Wow.
As long as you stay from that, we got you, your cousin Pookie, and your mommy. But outside of that, we're not going to back you. How do we support that? Is there a sacrifice of finances, or is there a way that we can self-fund each other to be able to get the message out that we can get out?
Now you're going right there.
It just took us 51 minutes.
Right.
So the interesting thing is, as you were saying that, I felt like the first thing that comes to mind is, I think the cat's already out of the bag, and that the young folks know that. And I think that the young folks that will limit their voice for record deals are going to be in the minority. They're
Or
going to be there.
endorsements. We've seen
Or
that.
endorsements. But I think that we're in an unprecedented moment of consciousness raising, and I can give many examples of reason another time, but there's a resurgence of the negritude, as my good friend used to say. You know, black consciousness, and the young folk understand that more and more, and they also have tools that they don't need these record companies anymore, and they see what the record companies have done to each succeeding generation before them preceding.
Oh.
So I think that the way we can help them is listen to them, support them, don't judge them, provide examples of things, how to use their words better, you know. And I'm going to say this with all due respect to celebrities, Bishop, and rich folks in the black community, but I feel that there really could have been done so much more by the elite black community in our country to help these young people, and to go around this limitation that has been put on the music and the art. And I think it still can be. And I think that a lot of them have been sitting on cash doing nothing but enjoying it. And, you know, when I say these young cats, these young, you know, men and women writing lyrics, you know, what can the effect be of someone of the stature of, say, a Toni Morrison doing an album, providing words with these people, with these young cats, you know, doing an album and pulling that and showing them and raising their level of verbiage, you know, boom, you know, and it's out there, you know. Bell Hooks, you know, we got writers. Who's the other one? Tahis Coates, you know. Maybe he's doing a comic book. That's great, you know. But, you know, maybe he needs to go out there and write some words. Show these folks how to use their words. These people are expressing themselves the only way they can.
And to piggyback off of that, girl, and I think even from a higher level perspective, just the basic principle of those who have learned the ropes of owning their masters, owning the actual information that can keep them empowered for their self-expression, that being shared from the older generation and making that more normal in the culture. Like, I'm a real estate agent. Why the hell do I know about this? And there's a lot of people that are in that industry as their bread and butter and are completely clueless as to picking their brains with people that know the power of having that as a pivotal part of the music foundation to be normalized. You know, it's hurtful. It's hurtful to have to listen to so much carbon copy nowadays and just hear the cap on self-expression when it comes to music, and just hear the repetitive narrative to distract and disenfranchise our people, to make it seem as though there is no creativity. It's just specific subject or nothing. And if you try to venture out into stuff that's been popping off in the 70s or the 80s, then you're going to be blackballed.
So
And
that's where
that's
where I want to jump in, and we're coming to.
I think we're gonna have to have another episode, Bishop, because I know you want to run on for 2 hours.
You crazy.
And listen, we're gonna have to have another episode because, you know, Jason, the challenge is when you talk about, for me, it's the culture. Whoever designs the culture designs and is the architect of the society. And what's in the culture? Culture is what you read, your literature. Culture is your cuisine, how you eat. We didn't even get to that, but I know that's in his repertoire. Culture is how you entertain. Culture is how you worship. Culture is how you learn. So all of these components, and I have seen in so many different avenues where influential Black and brown individuals have been capped. if you're in sports, don't use your popularity in sports to try to influence the culture. Just play the sport. If you're in ministry, don't use your popularity and influence that you've gained from ministry to try to speak to this culture. Just keep preaching Jesus. If I've gotten it, I got hit. I got hit. I got hit. I'm called a civil rights. I'm a civil rights leader now. Oh yes, I am. I will, and I own it. No problem. That ain't hurting me because Moses was a civil rights leader. That's a whole nother conversation. So my thought process, and that's why I was so excited for you to be on the show, Garon, is
Mm,
is
thank you.
because you individuals who play a part in influencing the culture actually have the greatest chance of shifting the generation. And I
Mm,
wanted this
mm.
conversation to be heard. And I want, like you said, Jason, I do want us to continue. We got 2 minutes. Jason, we're going to go over 2 minutes. Jason, what is your takeaways? Give us a 60-second takeaway. Garon, give us a 60-second what we need to take away. And then, Jason, I'm going to give it back to you. Tell us what to expect next week.
Listen, I think this conversation just double down on the aspect of mindset and our subconscious inner workings. I think that is so slept on in this current cultural normalcy that there is a drainage of empowerment and self-empowerment due to the fact that we are blind even if we have eyes. And I think raising the level of awareness when it comes to our self-conscious and what affects it, and even if there's not anyone else around, when we say certain things to ourselves, our body is listening to us and understanding the implications of that. I think there's layers that need to be addressed and need to be more aware as we move forward and become a cultural normalcy. That is very pivotal in terms of shifting the culture and raising awareness. And that's it. I'm gonna just end it there. Go ahead, Garon. Go ahead.
Okay, well said, well said, well said, sir. Well said, sir. For me, I guess I would just like to highlight that we have, the macro view is very important, and we have so much power in our history and in our various cultures that we need to explore. And as Jason said, we have to start exploring our personal mindset and how we can use it to combat what's out there and to build. And once you begin to do that, you go deeper,
Right.
and you realize that there are tools you can use, and you realize that there are people out there who already have these tools, and if you don't have them, you can go to them and learn what these tools
Should
are.
be able to go to them. You should be able
You
to go.
should be able to go to them, and sometimes you can't because they're not around, and sometimes they you don't know where to find them. But that's the thing. That's our job. Like as an event producer, I try to bring them to meet the community. And that's what I think we should be focusing on. So finding out more about the financial system, finding out how much to support the true leaders in the community, and how to delve in our brain and come up with that power that we need to really to build our community every day with passion.
I think my quick takeaway, and then Jason, I'm gonna give you to close it out, is two major things. One, don't expect a society that was created to exist and prosper at the expense of another community to help said community. you know, um, I think my second major takeaway is understanding the difference between the allure and the attractiveness of riches versus true wealth, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
not being trapped or not being baited to become rich at the expense of helping the narrative of degradation of wealth in our community. It's almost like I'd rather not have than to take from you if that means it's going to take from my community. So
Yeah.
as we become wealthy, how do we become wealthy? At what cost? At what expense? And who are we bringing with us on this journey of wealth? Then they wouldn't have to find us. They know who we are. I don't want to be the only one that lives in a nice house and drives a nice car in my church. If I'm the only one that lives in a nice house and drives a nice car, that's very suspicious to me. That's very
Mm-hmm.
suspect to me. And it's
Mm-hmm.
very sad because I'm telling them that, well, just wait on the Lord while they see me living in luxury. And even if I'm not using their money to live in luxury, well, then, other than hallelujah, show me how you got it, Bishop.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
Mm-hmm.
want to look out and I want to see generations of generational wealth. And I think the only way to get there is to us to make conscientious decisions
Yes.
of who backs us, who funds us, and who tells us what.
Yes.
Back to you,
Yes.
Jason.
I'm done. I'm tapping out.
What's next
I'm
week? What do
tapping
we
out.
got
Look,
going on next week?
so next week, we're gonna have someone in the financial realm that has an understanding of handling assets, around $1 billion worth of assets, and has worked in the Wall Street sector, breaking down some of the ins and outs of how that exactly works, plans out, and what are the things of awareness that individuals on that level are keeping in mind and keeping part of, their financial curricula for a yearly basis. And I think, going into June, we're gonna have a round two of Garon. If he does have any
Definitely.
availability in his session, in his
Whenever
schedule.
you want. I'm tuning in next week to check that one out.
Yes, and I'm excited. I think there's so much to discuss when it comes to making money in all these business plays, but none of that matters if the inner workings of self-belief isn't there. You can have a coach that can be passionate for the player winning, but if the player doesn't believe that they can win in themselves, it doesn't matter how many coaches you have.
Well said.
That's it.
All right. Well,
Well,
God bless
thank
you
you.
all. Garon,
Thank you
thank you
guys so
so
much.
much.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, Jason, for including me in the
Of
conversation.
course. Time and
Thank you,
again
guys.
and again. Yes. Oh man,
All
Bishop,
right.
over and out.
Over and out. I see you guys. Everybody that's been watching, want to say thank you. Everybody that's watching on Facebook, thank you. Make sure you like, tag, and share. Turn on notifications so that when we go live, Facebook will not curate this footage. So they're not going to get us, the people. You have to be a part of it. You have to turn on notifications so that when we go on, you will be notified. If you're
Mm.
watching from YouTube, again, thank you. Do the same thing. Make sure you like, you tag, you sharing video. Do a screen recording on your favorite part of this show and play it in your stories. Tag Jason, tag myself, tag our own. This is how we get the message out. This is how we normalize this type of constructive community building, wealth building conversations. And thank you for watching us on Apple TV, on Roku TV, on Amazon TV, on the Go Judah app, and on the Go Judah website. So whatever 7 platforms you've watched us, we thank you. We appreciate you. If you watch from one of those other platforms, do a screen recording and then share it on some of the social media just to let the people know that you did
Mm.
watch. That will make sure, because the whole business of social media, we, the people who are watching, are the product. So
Mhm.
when they see that you are watching and you're paying attention, they will bring this information to other people like yourselves in your particular network. Because if you're interested, maybe your friends are interested. So you let them know you're interested. That's how you can support without giving a dollar. Let them know that you're interested. And when you come into your kingdom, remember us. Have a good day, everybody.
God bless everyone.
God
God
bless you.
bless.
Bye bye.